I want to be respectful of all of your time, so we'll go ahead and proceed. I'm Beth Pomper. I'm Director of International Business Development for the state of Delaware. Welcome to our program on global supplier diversity. Before I get started, for those of you who are not based in Delaware, that's just fine. I want to start by saying that this program is open to everyone, regardless of which state you come from. So everyone is welcome to remain on and learn, and we're very grateful to have all of you. So welcome to our Global Supplier Diversity Program. How can you leverage your women or minority-owned business certification to sell to the top brands in the world? Today, we have an esteemed panel of speakers that I'd like to introduce. First, I'd like to introduce you all to Constance Jones. Constance is Senior Director of Field Services for the National Minority Supplier Development Council, joining us today. And happy to introduce her colleague and our friend, Brian Oglesby, President of the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council based in Philadelphia, who also covers Delaware and the Mid-Atlantic region. Then, of course, you all know our dear friend, Michelle Morin, back. We're so happy to have Michelle back with us for this program. Michelle is Global Procurement Leader of Supplier Diversity and Sustainability for Corteva AgriScience. And just very happy to have her as back home here with all of us in Delaware. Next, we have Raul Suarez Rodriguez. Raul is Director of Global Economic Inclusion and Supplier Diversity for Merck. Raul, thank you so very much for joining us today. And finally, we have Maria Prince, who is Global Procurement ESG Leader from DuPont. So we're very happy to have Maria with us today. Thank you so much for joining. What we're going to do is we're going to make this very informal. You're not going to have a whole bunch of speakers one by one. We're going to keep an open format and we're going to have a conversation. And most importantly, we'd like to encourage your questions. So as we move forward, if you have a question, if I could ask you to please type it in the chat, and we'll call on you and we can ask questions as we move forward. We have a lot to get through today, so I'm going to try to go quickly and give you as much as possible. We could keep these folks engaged for hours and they have a lot to share. So first, I'm going to reach out to Brian and ask Brian, what are the benefits to certification?
You're muted, Brian.
You're on mute.
Unmute. I am unmuted now. Well, one of the benefits of being able to read the instructions on Zoom broadcasts and doing this frequently. But one of the things, this is an example of what it means to have an MBE and some of the extra benefits. Also being beyond just being vetted as a legitimate and viable company, it connects you to a very large network that not only has a regional reach, our region being all of Pennsylvania, all of Delaware, and southern New Jersey. It also connects you to the rest of the National Council, which is by proxy a national certification, and again by proxy, gaining access to global marketplace through our strategic partners such as BET and all the organizations who are our corporate members that are global corporations who have an extended reach and can take your supplier skills and your commodity globally if necessary. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how small you are. you have access to a network that you would otherwise not have access to, as well as resources and our ability to advocate for you as an organization, as a company that can provide services across the board. I think it's a great way to open up marketplaces. And fortunately, I've been on both sides of this table in the space of certifying MBEs and also running an MBE. So I can give you living examples of how this has benefited me as an entrepreneur in so many ways, and also how we've benefited companies in my role as president and previously vice president of EMSDC. So long answer short, it opens up all kinds of doors that you otherwise would have to fight really hard to open up on your own.
Thank you. Brian, can you or Constance just go into a little bit of more detail as to NMSDC's global partners and how you and she can work with them to help them sell their products or services to the multinationals?
Yeah, so I will take that, and good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting us to participate. NMSDC has currently 5 global partners in order to support the efforts of our minority businesses. We have them in South Africa, China, the UK, South Africa, and Australia. And so we really look at those, in Canada, I'm sorry. So we really look at those 5 opportunities to help MBEs engage and form not only strategic alliances to help them do business there, but also finding an opportunity to support the multinationals that actually operate in those countries. And so we are constantly looking at new ways that we could help our businesses grow, not just organically, but to actually have a live growth in their business. And so we look at how do we support those who are actually operating in those areas. We are looking at adding 2 additional countries this year as we're working towards our 50th anniversary. And so we're just really excited to be able to understand what needs from our corporate members are international, and then how can we support both their firms internationally as well as here domestically.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if I want to throw it back now to our corporates, you all come from large corporations. Can you explain to the group if you do purchase from small businesses, and if so, perhaps how small? Who'd like to take that one first?
I'll be a gentleman. I'll let the ladies take on first.
Okay. Okay. Michelle?
And I was waiting for Raul to go first. So for everyone here to know.
Well, we know how he is.
Well, Raul has led 2 multinational corporations into the biggest third-party watchdog of success, and that's the $1 Billion Roundtable. So let's defer to Raul first, because he's done this not at one place, but at 2. And so he has really that high-level validated experience. And then I'm going to defer to DuPont, to Maria, because DuPont is one of the 2 parents of Corteva. And then I'll go last and play clean. So let's do that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Raul Suarez Rodriguez. My pronouns are he and him. And I lead the Global Economic Inclusion and Supply Diversity Program here at Merck. Global economic inclusion is core to procurement. And this is where we buy products and services, and we drive that inclusion of businesses regardless of your size. So a small business is critical part of the work that we do with the supply diversity program. Why? There's a couple of reasons. Number one, we know it makes sense to hire suppliers that reflect the patient populations that we serve, right? We're in the business of creating medicine to save and improve life. 2, we are a federal contractor to the US government. Therefore, it is required of us to really utilize small businesses and an operation. So, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the compliant things to do when it comes to including small suppliers into the way we do our procurement activities. So Maria, over to you.
Thank you, Raul. Can everybody hear me? I know you can't see me, and I apologize for that, but hopefully you can hear me. I'm having some technical issues here. But I wouldn't add much to what Raoul said as far as dealing and working with small businesses. Those are all things that we also care about at DuPont. One thing I would add though is, and I know this might sound contrite because you hear it all the time, but we've seen it proven out at DuPont, is we're in the process of innovating. We're in the process of sustainability initiatives. We're trying to revamp the materials that we use. We're trying to make sure that the materials we use are not forever materials and chemicals that hurt the environment. So what we found in working with small businesses is that they're often the ones that come up with the new ideas. The tried and true companies that we've worked with over the years, some would say at DuPont that we've kind of ruined them because they have a way of working and they have a way of working with DuPont that they feel like they must do. So you can't see what you can't see. But new companies, small companies, they always come with fresh new ideas. And so in addition to what Raul said, that's the other reason why we like working with small companies, because they're on the cutting edge of technology and they understand sustainability, economic impact, and all the other things that we're trying to do that sometimes our larger, more established suppliers don't quite get. So that's what I would add to what Raul just said. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Maria. So then I will pick up a different vantage point. If you are a small business, you have to decide, are you going to be a small business that stays a small business, or are you going to grow and scale? Because corporations are going to work with you differently depending on the decision that you make about your company. If you want to be a small business of a certain size because you don't want to hire a lot of people, because the unique differentiator that you have is really about you, the expert, and what you're delivering, then you may be able to do niche pilot projects with a multinational or a global company, but you want to start the conversation that way. I'm unique, I'm niche, I can do pilot projects with you. I'd like to speak to you about pilot projects. When you approach me and my colleagues that way, we know that you understand your space and where you play best. Now, if you're a small business and you want to scale, then I'm going to ask you on the NMSDC, are you a class 1, a class 2, and then are you going to grow to a class 3 or a class 4? So class 1 is up to 1 million in annual revenue. Class 2 is 1 million to 10 million in annual revenue. What we do with you in that space usually is not an RFX. You're usually not going to bid on an RFX with us. RFX meaning RFP, RFQ, RFI, RF anything. Because we at the multinational level, most of our RF fill in the blank is going to be bigger than 10 million most of the time. If you get to the 10 million, you have exponential growth potential in that class 3. And that is a company that wants to grow to scale. Once you've crossed the 10 million threshold, 10 million to 50 million is class 3. That's where we can work with you in a different way. We could work with you with VC money. We could work with you investment with you. We could work with you in partnerships. We can build something new together to bolt on. And so where is your business in your revenue, but also where is your business in your appetite to scale and grow? And then if you're a class 1 right now, that's not bad. Start building alliances and partnerships with others that are class 1 and class 2. If you're a class 2 right now, continue to build alliances with class 2s and class 3s and be a tier 2 to them, right? So I'm sure we'll get to that. Raul has a world-class tier 2 program. Corteva is just going to start our tier 2 program next year. I don't know where DuPont is in their tier 2 program. They've been around longer than us. Corteva is 3 years young, 3 years old, with hundreds of years of heritage. So some things we have maturity in, some things we don't, like a small business. We just happen to be at 15 billion in annual revenue. But some of the things we do are small. So we recognize all of those opportunities. You have to decide your appetite as a small business and your true potential to maintain your size for operational excellence or scale and grow. And until you decide that, you shouldn't talk to multinationals. Once you decide, there's a place for you. It's how you approach us. Beth, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Hey, Beth,
Okay.
before you move on, I want to touch
Yeah,
on, because
please.
I see Michelle brought up tier 2, and I see a question on the chat where, how, as a young company, how will you approach, multinational companies like ours? I think Michelle just, provided a great explanation on what do you want to do as a supplier and how you should be approaching. But another opportunity that I see that suppliers sometimes don't really capitalize on is asking the question about the second tier. They're so focused on do business with our corporation at a tier 1 level that we forget opportunities that we have at a second tier level. Second tier means is you'll be working underneath a prime supplier that's a tier 1 supplier to each of our organizations that has been established. Perhaps they're non-diverse. And they also have in their contract requirements to leverage subcontractors on behalf of the contract that they hold with a corporation. There's opportunity there, but again, if you don't do that homework that Michelle just articulated, what do you want to do when you grow up? If you don't really analyze where you want to play, then you're missing that opportunity, because you're not coming to us asking us, can you introduce me to Accenture? Can you introduce me to EY? Depending on what you are, right? And what type of industry you are, can you introduce me to Thermo Fisher Scientific? And I can tell you how much we have been able to impact to our second tier program by having the suppliers to be open to really explore what that means, working under another company, because that also is going to give them learning and how to eventually become that tier 1 supplier that you want to do. But it all comes to the preparation that Michelle said and the questions that you ask and how you approach, ourselves as your advocates, right? Because at the end of the day, none of us make decisions when it comes to providing opportunities, but we can advocate and influence on your behalf.
So I'd like to jump in because I was sitting here listening to the conversation. I wouldn't be true to my NMSDC roots if I didn't bring up the fact that not only can you do business with corporates, but you can do business with each other.
Right.
People often forget that. We had an event last week, and there were MBs in the room that had 84 million of revenue and above. And all of the companies in there who were tier 1, as Michelle has described, were all looking at us, Chase and myself and some others who were in the room, but they forgot they were standing next to an $84 million MBE to do business with. So don't forget, there are MBEs out there that are truly big and scale that you can do business with as well.
And I would just add on to that by saying another opportunity is leverage the relationship and formulate strategic alliances. So just because you are young doesn't mean that you're not nimble and innovative that can provide a solution to someone, another MBE or another partner that's already doing business with that corporation that you're interested in doing business with. So actually getting out there, as Maria just mentioned, meeting other minority business owners or just other businesses where you can actually provide complementary services and go after larger contract opportunities is something else that's made available to you as you go through this certification journey and you're attached to organizations like your regional councils and NMSDC.
Agree, and I'm going to add one more piece, because there is a company on this call who's doing this right now. You also can work with Beth Pomper and Emma Poulter and do export. So Export Delaware happens to be working with a Delaware business that Corteva didn't discover in our local footprint, but they were lifted by Export Delaware to our Africa footprint. And they already have had a meeting with our procurement executive for Africa and Middle East. And they are going on a trade mission with Export Delaware this month. And they are meeting not only with a procurement decision maker, but the procurement decision maker is trying to get the internal stakeholder decision maker to be at that same meeting. So when you work with Export Delaware, or if you're not from Delaware, the state entity in your state who handles trade missions and export opportunities, you could find the right relationship with a multinational based on wherever they are. We're called multinationals because we're in multiple nations, That's what multinational means, right? Corteva sells in over 140 countries. We own property and have footprint in 69 countries. So even though we didn't happen to discover this particular woman business enterprise on our own, Beth said, hey, Corteva, any chance that you might be interested in the technology and services that this particular company is offering, and we're going to Africa, Middle East, what do you think? And we looked at the capability statement and we looked at the other credential materials and said, yes, let's make sure we get a beneficial conversation. So we did a get acquainted call, and now we have set up an on the ground, very warm lead, real business meeting. So the size didn't matter, the opportunity and the service and the connections matter. And that's where NGO advocacy organizations, partnerships across small business and diverse business channels really matter. And so Beth is a multi-year supporter of diverse businesses everywhere, as well as taking Delaware businesses on trade missions beyond the borders of Delaware. So Beth, you're going to tell everybody, but please do. What's the percentage of money that exists outside of the United States?
95%. 95% of your customers are outside the United States. I can't urge you all enough to leverage your relationships here, to work with EMSDC, Brian and Constance on the national level, to meet Michelle and Maria and Raul and their colleagues from other organizations, because it's all about relationships. And we can explain later as to how you can approach a multinational and how you can pitch to a supplier diversity director, but it's all about the relationships. But honestly, you don't get a free pass. Just because you're a woman-owned or a minority-owned business, you still have to have the right product, the right placement, the right pricing, the proper approach to supply and enter the multinationals. So some of the things that I get asked all the time is, what kind of products does a multinational company purchase through their supplier diversity program? I know you buy everything really that the company would write a check for, but perhaps you all could each comment briefly on, if you see any white space, what kinds of opportunities are you currently looking for that you might need a little help finding, that perhaps some of the folks on our call today might be able to provide? What kinds of categories do you feel that are emerging within your companies and your manufacturing space?
So I'll start and then I'll kick it to my friend Raul, because we're all friends on the call. And that's one of the great things about this relationship, is that from a national perspective, we get asked about almost any and every commodity and or service that's out there. One of the things that our big focus on is changing the narrative of embracing more than just supplier diversity, but business diversity. And what that means for us is that think of supplier diversity, not just of suppliers, but actually firms that provide professional services. So we had a financial institution ask us for a list of marketing and advertising firms, and they were very clear. They don't want someone that happens to be in this space. They want someone who's excellent in this space. And so you're beginning to see corporations coming to NMSDC asking specifically for services that are also labeled as professional services, but also for commodities that doesn't necessarily fit nice and neat inside of what we used to call just supplier diversity. So I encourage any and all types of firms. We're seeing things like transportation and logistics. We're seeing the need for, we're focusing on farmers. So the need for wraparound services in that particular industry. And so it really depends on your service, and then how does that service kind of fit into the requirements for the different and vast corporate members we have. Over to you, Raul.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me start by saying opportunities don't come every day, because we probably already have a contract in place on the category of the products or services that you provide. So I think the first thing to understand is, how is your sourcing process and how long does it take? Right? Is it every 3 years, every 5 years? Okay, do you have this already contracted? When is it coming out to bid, right? And then, you know, that conversation will be easier, because now it will put you in, it will put in perspective, you know, is the opportunity now, or is the opportunity going to be 3 to 5 years from now? So you could start building that, going back to the earliest point, we're going to start building that relationship towards that opportunity comes. And then you could start getting more information. You could be acclimated on the sourcing process and so forth, so on. So opportunities that we exist today, that we don't have a lot of representation, you know, of diverse suppliers, is in the upstream of our supply chain. Think about it. We are developing medicines, vaccines, and, you know, we need to buy antibodies. We need to buy molecules, proteins. We don't have a good representation there. I want to say, what opportunities do you have? We have opportunities in that pre-discovery and discovery phase of the drug, right? So those are the things that we really need. Also on the manufacturing side, you know, after that drug was already developed, it went to a clinical trial and is ready to go out to the mass population, we need to manufacture that. So we're going to need large scales of suppliers providing ingredients. The product components, if you're looking at a syringe for a vaccine, you know, we need to build that syringe, and we need to, you know, get it to manufacture. So those are where I see the biggest opportunity, where, you know, we get those RFPs when that contract is about to renew. And unfortunately, we can't find a supplier, neither a tier 1 or tier 2 level. So to me, that's the biggest opportunity when it comes to that inclusion in our supply chain, because we do have suppliers in other products and other services. Unless you have a very unique proposition, something very innovative, and then we'll take it aside, and then we engage, and then we'll, again, allow you to communicate that to the right category manager, so you could actually pitch the product or that service, and then we'll take it from there. That doesn't say that we just go every 3 to 5 years. There's opportunities that come out and off, as I would say pilot, like Michelle said. We're going to try this because it's so new. That's a pilot to us, right? And then we're going to take that separately. You don't have to wait for the whole process, but you need to communicate it, right? And you need to let us know.
Yeah. So everyone should maintain the dialogue and have a continual relationship with the supplier diversity lead for the multinational that you're looking to eventually work with.
So Beth, can I add a few comments
Please,
here?
Maria. Yes.
Also, DuPont is a specialty chemical company. So we Merck is one of our customers, and we work with just about everybody in the industry. And I would say, I agree with Raul. The first question you should ask is when the RFP is coming out, when you're approaching someone for an opportunity. But also, there are 3 areas that we buy in: raw material. And I am having a really hard time, and I heard this in the call today, finding people who are manufacturing. Read the trends that are happening in the government. We're trying to bring things back to the US. Yes, we're going to be exporting, but we're exporting goods that are made here to other countries. So there's a trend. So what I'd encourage you to do is, whatever your area of commodity or service, read what the trends are that are happening in your particular area. So we're looking for contract manufacturing, where we actually provide you the material, you just have to make it. We're actually willing to help capitalize companies to do this. So even if you're small, if you're in that space and you're doing some of that already, we're interested in partnering and capitalizing you with contracts that we secure for your funding. Indirect, one of the things that we're doing in indirect, you have the traditional categories, but think about it from a sustainability or some of the climate things we're doing. So IT, if you're in the IT space, can you help us track the materials that we have to end of life? If you're in logistics, can you help us move that product around back to a facility so they can recycle it? If you're in a recycling facility, can you do that? So if you're in waste management, maybe you pivot to recycling. Logistics from a customs perspective, we need help with CPAT and other requirements that are coming from countries like China. We need companies to help us make sure that when we're bringing things across the border, we vetted those materials, we vetted that paperwork, and we're making sure that we're doing it the right way so our product doesn't get stopped. Look, in the indirect space as well, capital, treasury, you know, we have a lot of M&A activity going on. Are you in that space? We can't find people to do things in our treasury group. I go to them, but they said there's nobody there. I know there are a few people there, but those are some of the things that I'm talking about. So read your industry group material, go to your industry group meetings, go to any of the conferences that you see happening in the industry, and you'll hear all about some of the things that I've talked about, because everything is pivoting to climate, circularity, recycling, overseas, but it's made here and shipped abroad. So those are just a few of the things I want you to think about as you think about opportunities to do business with a multinational.
And then if I can, I'm going to add on to that. So Corteva, core means heart, Teva means nature. We're at the heart of nature as a pure play agriculture company, and we help farmers feed the world. We're 3 years young, and so you probably don't know a lot about us. And so one of the things that you can do.
Michelle, I think you went on mute.
I did, because I hit the space bar. Thanks, Beth.
Sure.
All right, I've just added into the chat. Next Tuesday, we're having a Corteva Investor Day, and you're all invited. You have to register, but I've given you the link. And if you go to the link, it'll take you to our website, and you can register, and you will get to meet our CEO, our 2 executive vice presidents who are leading our seed business and our crop protection business. You'll hear about innovation and sustainability and ID&E and how we are looking for new opportunities, both for services as well as goods. So external manufacturing or contract manufacturing, where you manufacture our compounds at our recipe, that's absolutely something that we're looking for sure. But some of you offer things that we don't even know about. So I'm also always looking to meet a company that approaches me with a good capability statement and who has done your own research to tell me how you see a fit of your company into Corteva. If you show up with, Michelle, here is my capability statement, here's how I see a fit for my company into Corteva, whether it's in the United States or it's in some other place, I would be an idiot if I didn't first listen and meet you, if I didn't then ask some questions, and if I didn't then find the right internal buyer or stakeholder, or ideally both, to get a meeting set up. Now, don't expect that all is going to happen in 2 days. And don't send me an email and the next day an email and the next day an email and the next day an email, because you went from my interesting pile to a pain in the you-know-what pile. And some of those go into the automatic other file, and I never see your email again, however many you send, 27 or 2, and I'm being transparently honest, and I know I'm being recorded. I'm going to tell you the truth because I want you to succeed. And if you have something so amazing that's the right fit with Corteva, I want Corteva to succeed. And even though we are supplier diversity advocates, we have a fiduciary duty to our employer. And so we're looking for the right fit into our companies, and you help us get there. If you've never looked at an investor relations page on a corporate website, you haven't done your research yet. If you don't understand why the investor relations page is important, you haven't thought about who owns our company. And we have a duty to our owners, and those are stockholders. And why do stockholders care? Because they want a dividend, and they want a good company, and they want good sustainability and good business practices. So if you come ready to tell me not only how you fit but how your values in your company align with the values in our company. If you tell me all the reasons that we should be dating, to get into a relationship, to have some solid partnership, whatever we call it, because that's really good business. We have to like you that much. You can help make that happen. So we all have relationships in our companies, but we don't know the uniqueness of you until you tell us. But if you just show up and say, what are your problems? What are the problems you're trying to solve? Because so many companies try to show up that way. I just met you. I'm not telling you the problems in my company and making them public. And it's not the first date, the second date, or the third date that you would show up and tell someone all of your problems. So treat the relationship with a corporate the same way you treated the relationship with your better half. How did you explore fit? How did you find trust and authenticity and transparency, but also excitement? And for one of my dear friends, how did you find joy in working together? Because that's so important. Otherwise, heck, we don't want to work together. So the things that you do in meeting us are the things that help us bring you inside. And that's our job, to bring the outside in and partner with society and make our local footprints and future generations better because we did business with the right journey partners. So show us how you are the right journey partner for us. And that's different than if you're doing business with government. And that's different if you're doing business with a same-sized business, right? So the story that you tell, the conversation that you tell is different. And then I want to do a little shout out here because Linda Conlon is sitting on this call, and she is the president of the Greater Philadelphia World Trade Center. And if you're looking at that global experience, it's really important to know that you have the right partnership with the World Trade Center as well, and that you know that you can have an office in any country that you're going to travel to in a partnership with the over 400 World Trade Centers located all over the world. So find your local trade center. If you haven't met Linda yet, meet Linda if you're in Philadelphia, but find your state's export entity and your state's World Trade Center, and then find those beneficial business relationships for your company and the countries that you want to expand to. And then if you're an MBE, make sure that your local regional partner, like Brian, knows that you're interested in export, because he can then let Constance know and the NMSDC Global Committee know, which I work on with Constance, how we help MBEs do global business, and how all of the relationships that you're seeing of all these NGO advocacy organizations here come together to support your business, and how we as businesses do that together. So there are many beneficial relationships. It's your job to make those discerning choices with your money to join the right ones and to find the right partners and decide when, right? You don't have to do all of them on the same day or the same month, but find the right cadence for your strategic plan of growth and be able to pull different levers if all of a sudden you're working with DuPont and DuPont wants you to be in 2 places. Or if all of a sudden you're working with Raul at Merck and all of a sudden Merck really wants you to be in another complete new region that you've never been to before. Your state export entity, your global relationship through a World Trade Center, your connection to NMSDC that can reach out to the brother SDC in whatever part of the world, you now have a whole contingent that supports you, whether it's US or elsewhere.
Yeah.
All right, Beth, I'm done.
And we can, you'll all be hearing from us shortly, and we're happy to announce that the state of Delaware is partnering with Linda Conlon and her team, the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia, on the first, to my knowledge, national initiative of any state in the global supplier diversity arena. And we'll be directing all of you to Linda and her team on this global supplier diversity export education opportunity. That's for sure. Well, we've all talked a lot about what you're looking for and a little bit more about the program, but would you all be able to comment? I think the first question those that are new to supplier diversity are going to ask is, where do we begin? Where do we start? What's the first step? And although state certification is useful in some areas, please, the NMSDC certification for minority-owned businesses and the WeBank certification for women-owned businesses are really the gold standard and are the certifications that are accepted universally by the Fortune 500. So why don't we go back to where do we start? And why don't you start, Brian, on how folks could reach out to you and your team locally to get certified if they have not already done so?
Well, if you're not a certified company and you're seeking certification as an MBE, you can reach out to us at emsdc.org, and I'll put it into the chat. And we have an actual portal link to the application process. It will give you an outline of what's required for your application, an outline of the process. We'll get you connected with our director of MBE services, and then later in the process with our person who's in charge of the certification process itself. Essentially, you have to be in business for a couple of years. You have to have all your tax documents in place, whether they be personal financial records or business-based financial records, depending on the maturity of your organization. A clear line of sight on what type of business you're trying to do. Physical address within our catchment, headquartered or physical address. Oftentimes, people will get certifications in multiple jurisdictions. For the EMSDC certification by proxy, it is a national certification, but because it is recognized across the board, it's advantageous in order to go through our process because it gives you a broader channel of access. You know, to your point, Beth, about state certifications, municipal-based certifications, and even county level certifications, they're generally going to be narrow channel in terms of their reach and their ability to network with like-minded folks. But our certification process, if you have all your ducks in a row, typically it doesn't take very much time at all. In terms of getting in front of our certification committee, which is comprised of board members who are corporate members who will review your application for viability and making sure that it hits all the marks in terms of being certified. Once you get into that process, we go through an extensive onboarding process. We connect you with our opportunities, our events, our programming, and our extended relationships, Beth being an example. I'm very much sending private messages to folks that I need to talk to in here in my newly found role to make sure we have an even more extensive suite of opportunities. So if you are not an MBE, you go through that process. If you are currently an MBE, utilize this membership, utilize this organization, contact us, connect with us on a regular basis, participate in our programming. I'm actually broadcasting live from Lancaster, PA, because I'm going to a networking event right next door as soon as I'm done here. We have a litany of opportunities. We have a connection with our national folks, our national conferences coming up, and Constance can talk about that a little bit more extensively. Whereas an MBE, you can go down there and make some major connections and be plugged into some major opportunities. So long explanation short, there it is.
Thank you. Brian, Constance, could you comment on the matchmaker meetings that NMSDC offers at your conferences?
Yes, so as Brian mentioned, we are having our national conference in New Orleans, October 29th through November 2nd. It is a great opportunity for you to meet and engage other supplier diversity professionals like the ones you've met on this call today, and so many others from different industries. Inclusive in our national conference, we have a matchmaker where corporations actually log in and share the opportunities that they are looking for, and MBEs are able to match with those opportunities and request a meeting. You can also request a meeting from the MBE perspective. And if the corporation is interested in, you've piqued their interest with your capability, then you too can request a match to meet with them at the conference. So the conference really is, I like to tell people all the time, that even if you're not certified, the conference is a great opportunity to actually leverage relationships. You know, Michelle was saying about the relationships and connections on this call, but it's all about who you know and who knows you. And so you want to make sure that you are providing an opportunity to engage with these individuals, so as you don't get in that pile that Michelle was talking about that never ends up in front of a supply diversity or a professional, a practitioner. You want to stand out. So I really encourage you to do that. I'm going to also submit in the chat, we do have a certification reimbursement initiative that we are running at NMSDC. So if you are not certified and you are interested in certification, and we could help support your journey by reimbursing you the certification fee for any of our regional affiliates, please feel free to read the information. And if you have additional questions, you can let me know.
Thank you.
What's the date again? I'm sorry, Constance, what was the date in New Orleans?
October 29th through November 4th. And just a selfless plug, on October 28th, we are having a global workshop that's going to focus on International Day and how to engage our firms with going global. So I really encourage you to participate in that event.
Thank you.
Now, if a company is interested in working with a multinational that is not one of our esteemed panelists, how would they do that? Could one of you explain what that first step might be for them to find out who the relevant supplier diversity director would be? It's easy to find out, but moreover, how do they actually begin that engagement? Is that something your organizations can help with?
I can start there. If you have your targeted list of companies that you would like to approach, the first thing that I would recommend is go to their website and see if they have, most likely they will have information if they do have a supply diversity program. That's a way to look at it. Another way to look at it is go to the NMSCC website and you see what the corporate members of NMSCC are. If they're corporate members of NMSCC, that means that they do have a supply diversity program. Therefore, you definitely will find information about how they do things, you know, for that corporation listed on their website. So for us, we have merck.com/supply diversity, and you find all the information regarding our program. And I think it will work similar with other Fortune 500 organizations. But one thing that I would like to reinforce here is, when you're having those conversations, when you want to approach, start with know who the people are, and then you have to do the research, do your homework before you come and approach. On trying to understand the process, what processes that you put in place. Try to understand how we procure, and sometimes that information is available on the website. And I think Michelle said something earlier that I was just like smiling big time, because things that, you know, just investor call, things that you should be participating on, because there's a lot of information that happens there. ESG investment calls, those are happening. ESG is a big topic right now, and corporations are holding those calls. You should be paying attention to that. You should be pulling out the 10K report, and then you should be seeing about what it is. And then, you know, understand the pipeline. You know, again, in that 10K report, it will tell you exactly what the Merck pipeline will be in all the drugs that we need. And I said earlier, we have needs at that upstream of that supply chain. So if you know, or if you could become a partner with another company and create that joint venture or that strategic alliance, that will give you a foot in the door, right? But I think, you know, that's what I will say. You know, I have a portal. So part of my program is we have a portal. That's what we centralize registration process for diverse suppliers. You know, we attend about 10 to 15 conferences a year. So it's a way for us to track, you know, who are those suppliers that will be attending. It's a way for us to collect, you know, the information of your company. And then that gives on the back end access to the category manager to look at your capability statement or whatever you put in that profile. So when that opportunity comes available, then you could get invited. So that's what I can offer there.
I know we only have a few minutes, Beth. Could I just add one more thing?
Please, Fran,
From
yes.
a global procurement, from a procurement standpoint, what you will also find on the website is information on how we contract, our terms and conditions, what our contracts look like, what type of insurance you have to carry for certain types of product. So everything Roel said, but also look at the terms and conditions and the things like that to make sure that you could even do business with us. If you don't have the right level of insurance, if you don't agree with the terms and conditions, if you can't get into the supplier portal because you don't work with S2P, those little things that can keep you from being in the procurement pipeline, those are on the portal as well. Those are on our portal under suppliers, under the supplier center.
And I'm going to add one last one. If you have a target list of companies that you want to meet, as Raul mentioned, and if you already have a relationship with a supplier diversity leader or with a leader of EMSDC, NMSDC, WeBank, WeBec, whatever your local, any of the relationships that you have with us, you should feel comfortable to ask us to introduce you to your target one or two, one ideally. Tell us why. And most of the time we're going to say yes. And I will tell you, if I get a cold email from you and I get a warm email of introduction from Brian or Constance or Raul or Maria or Beth or Emma, guess which one I answer first? The tried and true warm one, because it comes with some credential that I already know how to measure. I don't know how to measure you yet. So leverage the relationships that you have in asking for that primary focus introduction. And know that if you fall there, if you don't respond well, if you don't handle it well, you at least need to come back to whoever did the intro and say, I had a hard time. Help me fix the hard time and we'll help you. Because at the end of the day, you only fail if you don't learn. And we can help you learn and do it again. But you have to be open to the learning. And I'm going to say it again. The only time you fail is if you don't learn. So you either win or you learn. And that's why we do the jobs that we do. So Beth, back to you.
Thank you so much. We do have 2 minutes left. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Do any of our participants in the audience, we can take one quick question if you want to type it in the chat.
Hey, Beth, I want to answer one question that was posed
Please,
earlier
Raul.
about tier 2. So we do have contract language and we encourage that second tier participation. I think the question is, how do you could just go back into it. Do you encourage your prime suppliers to engage in this arena? Absolutely. We do have about 40, 50 primes in the second tier program today that we encourage their participation. It's part of their scorecard, it's part of their KPI. We track and monitor that.
Right. So maybe the way in for all of you to get started would be to do exactly what Raul is suggesting and work on tier 2 engagement first and build your business to eventually becoming a tier 1 supplier. So really it's all relationship driven, being prepared, doing your homework, and really knowing and understanding the procurement process and how to leverage your certification to grow your business and grow your business domestically and internationally. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us on the call today. This has been recorded, and afterwards you all will receive a copy for you to listen to again in the future. And we all look forward to working with you, and you'll be hearing from us and Linda and her team at the World Trade Center on our upcoming Global Supplier Diversity Initiative. So thank you, Constance and Brian, Raul, Michelle, and Maria, for all your time today. We appreciate your expertise, and we hope that we've introduced you to some new friends along the way, and we look forward to working with you again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Delaware.
Goodbye, everyone, in all regions and spaces.
And all
Especially
regions and spaces too, for sure.
Yes.
Bye from Philadelphia.
Bye-bye.